Welcome back to the ABCs of ERP and Beyond, your go-to podcast for demystifying the world of enterprise resource planning and exploring cutting-edge technologies in the ERP space. And I am excited to dive into today's topic, which is managed services in ERP. So in this episode, we'll be breaking down the top 5 aspects of managed services within the ERP environment that every business leader should understand. So everything from outsourced management to cloud-based solutions, leveraging better support. We'll explore how these services are really revolutionizing the way that companies handle their ERP systems. So whether you are a seasoned professional in the ERP space or just starting to explore ERP options for your business, this episode has valuable information that you won't want to miss. So grab your favorite note-taking app or just sit back, enjoy, watch on YouTube or listening on a podcast platform of your choice. It's time to decode the complexities of ERP and discover how managed services could transform the way you operate. And as ever, I could not do this without my co-host, Nirav Shah. Welcome back again.
Absolutely, Peter. How are you? We didn't shoot last week. You were on a vacation that I probably wouldn't take. I wouldn't go to that part of the world. Haven't heard
Took
good
one for
things
the
about.
team.
Yeah, haven't heard good things about Venice. How was it? Was it a good trip?
It was good. Look, you have to do these things, and
You got to do these things.
I obviously drew the short straw, and I had to spend a week in Venice. So.
Oh boy, yeah, I feel bad for you, Peter. I really do feel bad for you.
Sunshine all day long, every day. It was tough,
It was tough. Good food,
drinking
yeah.
Italian
Good food.
coffee, the pizzas,
Oh
the
my
pasta,
God.
the gelato.
Oh God. Oh
oh
God.
man,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
amazing.
I wouldn't even wish that on my enemy, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's actually a place I want to visit. It's on my bucket list. I hope I get a chance to go there in the next maybe 2 or 3 years. I've been lucky enough the last year at least. We went out to Directions EMEA. So my wife and I we were out in Lyon, France. Yeah,
I shouldn't
and
do that. Apologies to any French people.
and went to Paris, so that was fun. Saw the
Lovely.
Eiffel Tower, done touristy things. So this year we're going to Austria. We're going to go to Vienna in Austria, though. So
Very nice.
that's going to be fun. Looking to possibly speak at Directions EMEA. So if any of the board members of Directions EMEA is listening to the podcast, I will be submitting my application for speaking and hopefully get selected. But yeah, I love going out to Europe. Italy is one of our like all-time bucket list places. My wife feels that in her past life she was Italian. And she loves pizza, pasta, the wine, everything. So I'm glad you had a great time. And welcome back.
Yeah, it was lovely. Thank you. It's nice to be back.
Yeah. We skipped last week. Yeah, shooting again. Excited about this episode. We have some interesting things to talk about. This topic is super important. I feel like we talk about managed services and how it relates to ERP and how that affects your decision in which ERP solution to go with, because you want the best of breed and it's kind of like a breakup with on premise, right? It's like you've had this really close friend for a long time, on premise friend that you did everything together and you knew everything was happening, and then all of a sudden you gotta say, okay, well, I found another good friend here. It's called on the cloud. It's it's a kind of a distant relationship because it's not a server right next to you in your office, but it could be a healthy relationship.
That server gathering dust.
Yeah.
Sitting next to an aircon, desperately making sure that it doesn't, for some reason, die on you. Yeah.
That's right. Long distance relationships work and they work well. In some cases. So, that's going to be the new best friend here, in technology. But the access and the security and the management could almost feel like it's still right next door,
Hmm.
even though it's the cloud and it's I physically can't touch something. I physically can't remove a hard drive. I physically can't put in a RAM or something, right?
Mm.
Or tap the server on the side to have it do something I want it to do, right? It's on the cloud, but it's probably a lot more flexible, right, than the
Hmm.
on-premise
Yep.
server that you have, on the side where you need to order things and things come in and you got to download software and stuff like that. Where a lot of these things could be done by click of a button, could be done by an email, and a lot of these things get installed, relatively quickly. So this is a really important topic, because as technology overall, as we know, is moving to the cloud, right? Almost everything that you touch from a day-to-day basis in your business or as a user, right, is some sort of software, is some
Mm.
sort of data you're putting in somewhere, you're doing an email, right? Whether you know it or not, everything is moving to the cloud.
Yeah.
So ERP is no exception to that rule. And yeah, I think there's a lot of points to consider here, but they're all positive. Um, the one thing that always comes up in this conversation is subscription costs. Subscription, I got to pay every month. I got to pay every
Hmm.
month. Yeah, but in the long run, it turns out to be a lot more cost advantageous to do that than, worrying about all these extra added costs that come up with on-premise servers and solutions and software that sometimes you don't even know about. You're just paying, which essentially
Mm.
turns out to be almost like a higher subscription cost for you if you amortize it over a course of a year, right? So yeah, not to dive too deep into everything that we want to talk about, but this is it's really important to be crystal clear on
Hmm.
what you're getting with the managed
Yep.
services style when it comes to technology. And we have 5 points to discuss today.
Yep. Okay, so point number one, let's get straight into these. So I guess this kind of is another definition of managed services, I guess, and it's the outsourced management. So we're now moving certain tasks and recurring, maybe daily tasks, weekly tasks from an in-house IT team to now uh, an outsourced management company or an outsourced vendor, or someone that's like managing the ERP day-to-day stuff. So that would be everything from just the uptime, the runtime of it, updates and support, and just the general kind of IT resources are lifted and put into managed services. So this is top five benefits of managed services. So what's the benefit here of outsourcing this management?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's really a lot, right? Because think about who you have to hire to manage all the new technologies that are emerging constantly, right? You have Python code, you have SQL, you have Visual Studios, you have uh, all these integrations. It's almost next to impossible to find that one person that knows it all, that can help you manage everything all at once, right? And if you do find that person, they're going to be pretty expensive, pretty darn expensive, in my opinion, right? Because they come with that experience and expertise. So, first and foremost is the ability to understand that what's required nowadays in this day and age is just not like one skill set. You need access to multiple skill sets to properly manage your technology stack internally.
Yeah.
And to do that effectively in the most effective way is to outsource it, and is to outsource it to the cloud.
Hmm.
Because based on what those software requirements are, those cloud providers, hosting companies, have those internal experts that essentially are continuously working to optimize your server, right, based on the
Hmm.
software that you have installed.
Yeah. And
Um,
I guess
yep,
there you're also not paying. I know we've got some things about cost reduction, but you're not
yep,
paying
yep.
for the continual training of people on the new
That's
technology,
huge.
are you?
Yeah, that's huge because this technology is changing very very fast. Faster than the gray hairs I'm getting. So
You can speak
so
with me.
so you got to think about, right, like how many certifications you got to take constantly to stay up
Mm.
to date to the stuff, right? How much how many angles of compliance you need to have to keep your data
Yeah.
safe, right? We'll talk about that a little bit later. Um, so yeah, no, absolutely. And like ITW, for example, right? Like, Peter, in your world, when you talk about from an end user perspective, um, conversations every day. How do we protect ourselves? How do we protect our data? How do we make sure we have the right technology? How do we have the right um, server sizes, right? Do
Mm.
we have the right servers to support the right software? Right, these conversations happen all the time, probably in a
Yeah.
company as big as ITW. So
Yeah. And that just
you need
branches
you need
out,
those
doesn't it?
people. Hmm.
Right. With especially with when you talk about the security and the data compliance stuff, when you've got an on-prem ERP solution, you've you got that's got to sit somewhere, and it's going to sit on an on-prem server, and the on-prem server is going to be running a server OS, which has got its own host of issues with patch management and making sure you're on the latest operating system. You're not on one that's out of support. Does your ERP actually support the server OS version that you need to run? So you could, if we go back to what we say, an ERP implementation or a migration in a business typically is, say, 12 to 15, every 12 to 15 years. There's a lot of different operating systems that a server goes through. So you might find yourself in a position where you're stuck on an older server operating system because your ERP cannot support the latest version. And immediately you've got a vulnerability. How do you patch a vulnerability like that? Well, we can't patch it because that means we need a new ERP. That's the stuff that goes away when it's a managed service in a cloud. But not only with that, with an on-prem server, you've also got the user access. Who can reach that? Who's got the rights to reach to certain things on that particular on-prem server? That's everything that an internal IT team would have to manage, look after, do audits on, do testing to make sure that there's no vulnerabilities, looking after all of the patch management on the hardware, looking at reviewing the access on the software side. There's a whole host of uh, time and effort and money that goes into managing an on-prem ERP.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about the next point here when we talk about continuous improvements and security and patches. What Microsoft Dynamics Business Central is doing to have a tighter integration with security through Azure AD, and how that relates into Business Central. So you're not creating
Mm.
all these different security groups everywhere, right? All over the place. It stays pretty consistent through your technology stack, and it starts at the AD level where you have your
Yeah.
users created for your domain. So I'll kind of quickly touch on that here on the next topic, but staying on our current topic here right now, it's when you have a managed service environment, you're able to be a little bit more hands off and know that the cloud provider is overseeing your performance, right? Overseeing if you need any additional resources, right? They're kind of adding capacity where necessary based on the needs of your environment, right? Automatically, so you don't experience a big delay. You
Mm-hmm.
stay with that performance that you're used to all the time, right? If you have spikes in transactions, you don't notice a performance delay because the hosting provider, the cloud provider, is automatically monitoring that stuff for you. And I know um,
Mm.
Microsoft Dynamics Business Central, it's all hosted. If you look at the SaaS license, it's hosted on Azure, and they're doing that constantly. They're load
Mm.
balancing all the time on all environments to ensure that you have the right capacity, you have the right resources at the right time you need it, right?
Yeah.
And if you consistently are over, right, then there's a conversation that, hey, you may need a little bit more of a dedicated server, right, or something like that, or a few less tenants on that server, or whatnot. But
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a peace of mind that you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
It's automatically being done on the back end for you.
Mm-hmm. And that links nicely to our next point here: comprehensive support. So we're kind of touching upon this when we talk about load balancing and ensuring uptime, and I guess moving from kind of proactive to a preventative way of managing issues. So comprehensive support, system updates, security patches, all of this kind of stuff. Uh, what would you say that you like your top aspects of having comprehensive support in managed services?
Yeah, it's important to have a really good data backup and recovery strategy. Especially for your ERP, because that holds so much of your operational data, right? ERP is nothing more than transactional data, right? At the end of the day, that's really the way you audit your business. That's the way you report on your business, right? What your financials have at the end of the day. So it's important that that gets backed up regularly, and on the cloud, it happens automatically, right? So it's not like on premise, you're backing up to another tape internally, right? And then that tape is backing up to another tape, right? So you feel secure. But what happens if there's a fire? All those tapes are gone. Right? Your
Mm-hmm.
backups are gone. So and obviously I'm being a little facetious because I don't think anyone's backing up on tapes anymore. They shouldn't be. They should at least have a cloud backup going. But when you're on the cloud, it's backing up continuously, like every 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, right? Whatever you decide. And you could restore any backups up to a certain point, right? Where that snapshot happened. So it's a real seamless process. So, you don't have to worry about something happening to your business. You don't have to worry about somebody coming and stealing any of your tapes, right? It's always there for you. Super reliable from that perspective. So I think that is a huge plus when you talk about comprehensive support. Um, Rapid responses to problems. If you are noticing delays, some latency issues, right? You're going to have people on it right away. It's one support ticket away. And, in your team, you might just have one IT person versus if you escalate a ticket with the cloud provider, you're going to have 5 or 6 people looking at it right away
Mm.
to find the solution, right? It's a peace of mind that you have a good team out there that's going to be out there to support you um, the way you need supported to keep your business up and going and
Mm-hmm.
performing. Continuous
Mm-hmm.
performance, is of system performance. So running those updates, those patches that they need to do consistently, making sure you're on the latest versions of solutions, right? Those type of things super important nowadays with how software is moving. I mean, just think about your iPhone or even your Android device, right? How
Yeah.
often do these apps update? Literally,
Ugh, yeah.
I feel like these
Every day.
apps are updating every single day. Every
Yep.
single day, these apps are updating automatically now. I got so tired of doing it manually. I'm like, I'm just gonna let it update automatically at this point.
Yep. It's the old
Right?
classic change log, isn't it, where it just says
Yeah,
bug fixes and improvements.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you think about ERP, it's just an app. It's literally just an app now
Mm-hmm.
because it's installed on your iOS device, installed on your Android device, and if you go to Microsoft Store, right? It's an app. You could download the Microsoft
Yeah.
Dynamics Business Central app and just have the app on your desktop
Yep.
and launch it.
Yep. That's all it is.
So
It's just a
yeah,
front
that's
end
all.
for a database. It's just a
Yeah,
pretty user interface for a bunch of tables
exactly.
and a bunch of
Yeah,
stored procedures.
exactly right. Right. It's ERP is not this gigantic mammoth of a software anymore. I mean, in the back end, it's still a big solution. This is a relational database, but the way the prices have come down, the way it's now more app based than it was ever before, right? And the way you have partners that understand these solutions really well, could implement it quickly, and you could have integrated financials and inventory and purchasing and sales are really really fast,
Hmm.
right? That goes with that whole model of the app, right? Of apps on your phone. So it just makes sense if you're used to having your apps automatically update because there's so many fixes and changes and performance updates are happening. Same thing with ERP. That's the direction it's going into. So if you have ERP on premise, you're not getting that advantage. You're staying on some old archaic version of your ERP that's not going to be mobile friendly. That's not going to, move your business forward, right? It's going to cause more cost at the end of the day because you're hosting it, on premise. There's going to be security issues, security risks. So there's a slew uh, what we call continuous support issues that you're going to continue to run into. Versus if you do something more on the cloud, it kind of happens automatically. It's very little that you need to do from an interaction standpoint. Sure, there's going to be some things you're going to want to, you know, control when it comes to an update, possibly when it comes to your server. If you have special code on the server, Azure Cloud or something like that. But for the most part, ERP. If we're talking about ERP, it happens automatically. The publisher is pushing out updates all the time.
Another one here, global support through support roles. This is a big one for me because at the moment our place has got an on-prem ERP solution, and it is a nightmare. Every time that there's, well, it's probably over exaggerating, but every time a support ticket goes in, there's the whole, oh, we need to, can we grab a new, flash image of your database? Can we take a copy to refresh our test database? Oh, it's a nightmare because it's like, yes, you can. You have to give approval, and then
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
it's too large, and they're like, "Can we just remote into your computer to be able to do?" And it's a nightmare because you've got the whole kind of, I need to be there. I need to be free to allow them access and make sure that they can connect to whatever they need to, and that kind of ties me up. I can't then do work on my laptop because they're accessing my ERP through it. And it's a nightmare from a management of those kind of connections and VPN tunneling, and um, just so they can kind of fix something that a user managed to screw up in the system. So all of that goes away when the managed services and we're using ERP as a SaaS in the cloud instead, because you can set up these roles, can't you? I know we've spoken about this before on other episodes where you can allow vendors access to certain things in your ERP. You can allow your support access to your ERP through like a support role or whatever, where they can just log in. It's a
Mhm.
browser-based solution, so they just go to your ERP, log in as the support, and then within that tenant, they have access to the same instances. They can work in the test environment, see if their fix will work, and then replicate it in live. You don't have to worry about, can they VPN in? Do they need access through TeamViewer? I've seen TeamViewer used for vendor support. Like, none of that. We
DVR.
don't have that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you remember? Do you remember?
yeah.
I say, do you
TV.
remember TeamViewer? So many people
Yeah,
still use it.
yeah. A lot of people still use it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. I mean, I used to do support for Nav, NAV, and anytime a customer wanted support, like, yeah, we can't give you access to our VPN, but we'll have this team viewer running on the server the whole time. And here's the link. Just go ahead and jump in. It's like, what's the difference at that point? You have a team viewer that gives me access to the whole the whole network,
Your whole thing. Yeah,
the
yeah,
whole thing,
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
yeah. We
this.
don't have VPN, but we have this TeamViewer, which is a VPN. But the good thing is, the connection's always live. Brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But with the cloud, you could silo this connection, right? You could say now, hey, sure, Mr. Vendor, we need the special code, we need this customization written. We're not going to give you access to our production environment, but here's our access to our sandbox, right? Before, once they had access to the VPN, they had access to all the software to your network, right? Unless you
Mm,
really locked it down. And most small businesses never did that, locked it down, right? But now you could just say, here, we're going to create a special license for you to only access Sandbox, and that's all you could access. Even though you have all your other software and solutions on the cloud, they only access Sandbox, right? Which is, I think, a huge improvement from a security standpoint and
mm,
efficiency standpoint, because then you can get things done faster, get the right resources to get things done for you without relying on one person. So yeah, it's definitely a huge benefit, and um, a good security measure to only give access to what's necessary without opening up for ransomware or anything like that. Because as we
yep.
know, that is a thing, and companies left and right now that are on premise are getting hit with ransomware, and they have to pay 50 or 60, $70,000 and hope they get a key back from these hackers
Mm.
that'll unlock their database. So definitely don't want to see customers in that position.
Yeah, and it just pushes it straight to the person that's managing it, whether that's Microsoft or Acumatica
Yeah,
or whoever else. Like that's now,
yeah,
well, I know obviously Acumatica is on AWS, so I guess it's
yeah,
Amazon's issue. Like you have
yeah,
to look after your encryption and your security of your servers,
yeah.
which is great because that's a huge burden. And when you look
Hmm.
at the monthly recurring subscription fees, it's worth its weight in gold when you
Oh
realize
yeah.
the impact of being hacked and having all of your files suddenly encrypted and a Bitcoin ransom. Like,
Oh my
you
God.
wish you would have just been paying that monthly fee to have this
Oh
managed
yeah,
in the cloud.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And it's but consider especially even if you did have security and you have the functionality to implement security on your on-premise server, but the IT staff that you have doesn't know how to implement it or think they've implemented it, but they kept so many holes open,
Yeah,
right?
and some of
That would
those
be,
holes are from some of those
you
holes
know,
are just because of laziness.
yeah,
Some of it,
yeah,
it's like, oh,
exactly.
we'll just keep
Yeah,
that. Oh, this user, we'll just make this user local admin to fix an issue.
yeah, right, right. Yeah. I mean, it's infuriating, right? Like, yeah, the tools are there, but the talent's not there to control the tools correctly, right? So why even have that headache or that risk? Just keep it up on the cloud where that has to be there based on compliance reasons.
Mhm. Okay, number three here, which again is closely linked, predictable costs. Well, we should really say this is two things: reduced costs, I'd imagine, um, reduced risk,
Hmm.
reduced potential costs, we could say, but the predictability of costs. Now, I know from an aging ERP system on-prem, it's ad hoc, volatile. We don't know. Something might break and turn around and go, yep, this is going to be $10,000 development time to fix. And it's the unplanned ad hoc nature of sudden breakages that need to be fixed. Um, you don't have that in a managed service because you're paying a recurring fee, which gives you the predictability, right?
Yeah, exactly. Um, and we've been saying it this throughout this whole podcast, kind of a theme here. Technology is moving fast. Software is moving fast, right? There's security risks are higher than ever in the technology space, right? Breaches and everything that are happening. Yeah, you might not incur if you're on premise, you might not incur a cost every month. But when there becomes an issue, right? And there's bound to be a couple issues every year. When there becomes an issue, that's going to be tens of thousands of dollars. So if you look at that couple single cash outlays that you have to do because of issues with upgrades, issues with hardware that you have to buy, issues with security, and you're spending 20 grand a year, plus you got to include the cost of the IT team that's there as well, right, per year. So now you're looking at 50, 60, $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year, right? Instead, if you just smoothed out those costs month over month, so you have a predictable fixed cost element where it's not variable, you're going to be able to budget better in the long run that route and be more profitable than coming up with these crazy swings because of unpredictable IT costs that you incur,
Yeah.
right? And I understand the point where I get into this conversation with some companies all the time. Actually, I just did with the prospect of ours, and they're like, "Well, we only want an on-prem solution, right?" And we talk through what does on-prem really mean, right? What have you done the last 3 years? Give us an honest cost of what you spent on your on-prem solutions, right? Like, oh yeah, our database went down and we had to, spend $4 or $5,000 to bring it back up, and then we had to do a server upgrade because X, Y, and Z reasons. We had to do a SQL database upgrade, so then we had to buy the latest copy of SQL, and so on and so forth. And then we calculate it out, like, okay, well you spent about $7,000 to $10,000, right? Instead, you could have just spent, let's say, $1,000 a month, and not only was it the monetary element of what you spent, but the time element of how much time you spent as a business owner to ensure that was done, to be on top of it, right? That took you away from additional revenue generating tasks for your business to take care of some of this overhead, right? You could have had you could have a subscription service on the cloud where all this could have been done for you with the predictable fixed costs, and you could have been out there selling more, getting more revenue in the door with the number of hours you spent to correct all these issues. And he's like,
Hmm.
you know what? You are right. I want all this control because that's the only thing I know.
Mm.
But if I would have just spent my time this other way, right? I could have focused on these 7, 8, or 10 deals that I had out there, right? Instead of losing them, I could have spent more time with the prospect. I could have spent more
Yeah.
time with them to get that closed. I could have done X, Y, and Z. I could have done some better continuous improvement in my business, right? Did additional training to our staff on how to sell our product better, or worked with our vendors to lower our costs a little bit more instead of spending time in our IT department,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we just had this conversation, and it's sometimes it's sad to say, but you realize it after the fact, but it's never too late, like I say.
Hmm.
So it's the predictable cost part is such a huge thing. I think it's predictable cost and time savings.
It's only when you start listing it out, or your IT teams, your internal IT teams, you say, right, I want you to track your man hours hour by hour, and then you like split that out and categorize it, and just look at how much is spent on upkeep of systems and stuff, or managing support tickets internally. Like, there's going to be a big chunk, and it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
taking them away from other things. Maybe, you know, the real value add being the technical expert on a on a project in the factory, or a project in the warehouse of how can IT support your business processes, or maybe taking them away from cyber security on other parts of the business or other software that you have. Uh, there's going to be a huge chunk in just clearing support tickets for
Yeah,
ERP.
yeah.
Next one we got here is ERP innovation. So I don't want to make this sound like it's an on-prem versus cloud discussion again, uh, which is easy to have because we know what the right answer is these days. But innovation with a managed service, it gives you access to this stuff. You don't have to. I guess it comes back to time, doesn't it? Your internal IT team or your ERP expert hasn't got to research and find out about the latest news and updates and reading change logs of what's happened, and then go and try and run an update on an on-prem solution. You get it different with managed services, don't you? You have incremental
Mhm.
updates, you have release waves. So we know that the big players, so if we look at Microsoft Business Central, Acumatica, they have two major release waves, kind of in the start of the year, first half of the year, and then another one in the second half of the year, where they are releasing new features, optimizations, bug fixes, improvements to UI, you name it, it'll be within that kind of release wave.
Mhm.
So the ability to leverage new technology is so much easier when you have this subscription based SaaS managed service ish model, right? Um, what's your thoughts on that? What's your thoughts in terms of you being an ERP vendor? Because I guess for you, it allows you to advertise features quicker, wouldn't it, rather than on prem? It gives you a competitive
Yeah.
advantage for yourself, I guess.
Yeah, well, it helps us, two fronts, right? We feel closer to the publisher than ever before because we see the previews, we see the releases that are coming out. We're able to test quicker. We don't have to upgrade our infrastructure, our databases to install those updates, right? Because our demo environments get those right away, and then we could roll out to the customers even faster, right? We could start being ahead of the upgrade, meaning we could test the upgrades ourselves and then tell our customers, hey, this upgrade's coming out, and this upgrade's touching some custom code that was done, or Mr. Customer, this upgrade, we have some good news, doesn't require you to have this customization anymore, right? Now it's out of the box, so on and so forth. So it lets us have a conversation with our customer ahead of time, right? So they feel they're better prepared for the upgrade
Yeah.
that's coming up from the publisher, which is all good, which is all good. I haven't heard one customer say, Nirav, you're telling me about this upgrade too soon. So they want to know, they want to be ahead of it on what's coming up, because companies nowadays, especially um, those that embrace the cloud, right? They embrace technology, and they are embracing change, and they want to know what's better for their business constantly. They don't want to
Hmm.
stand still. So it's really a good handshake between the publisher, the vendor, and the customer at the end of the day.
This is the benefit for me with this podcast is I'm on one side of this, and you're on the other side. I'm here as the end user more, and you're here as the vendor, which is I love having these kind of conversations because it's a completely different lens.
Yeah,
It's really cool.
yeah, yeah. No,
Uh,
it's great.
ERP innovation is a big one for me, definitely, because we
Yeah,
like the shiny new things. And as I said before, as a professional lazy person, when I see these features and uh, kind of new updates that automate a particular annoying recurring task, I'm like, oh, shiny new things. And often it's just a checkbox, isn't it? You just go into the back end, into the system management, and I know at least Power BI does this as well. There's preview features, and there's a whole load of things that are for preview, and you just
yeah,
click it, and it's
hmm
applied. Done. Now you can try it.
yeah, yeah.
If it doesn't work, take it off. Just
Take it
uncheck
off.
the box again.
That's it. Exactly, exactly. And these things are becoming very, very like how we use our phones, right? When we talk about upgrades and we talk about new features rolling out. So, Microsoft Dynamics Business Central and Acumatica, they have this functionality called enable features. So if it's a big enough change, right, or process change that they're rolling out in this next update, they'll not just force everyone to do it. They'll kind of phase it in. So they'll roll out the feature and people could test it,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a setting for these major features that they could say, okay, we are going to go full forward with this. So replace the existing feature with this new feature that's coming out, right? And you got to turn it on, you got to activate it, and you got to acknowledge it, right? And it'll also tell you if you don't do it now, that's okay. You don't got to turn it on now. You can still be on the latest release, but don't turn on that feature. But it'll tell you when the expected kind of automatic update for that feature will be. So
Okay.
it gives you a runway to continue working with it, get used to it until it becomes part of standard footprint, right? Before that
Mm-hmm.
old feature gets discontinued. So, which is really nice. It's not like they just are shoving new functionality down your throat, whether you want it or not. Depending on the impact of that new functionality, they're giving you a good heads up, a good runway to either turn it on or keep it off for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good. We're running out of time rapidly here, but we
Yeah,
are
yeah,
at point number 5, consolidated ecosystem. And I see our bullet points here. We've got my favorite word of this podcast, integration, which is what a good ERP system does. It integrates part of your business, I'm
yeah,
sorry, your parts of your business into one. So integration with other SaaS tools we've got. So, what's your
yeah.
main takeaway for this point?
This is it. This is probably more important than it's ever been before. Think about your user experience every day. And when you look at software, right? For example, um, when you want to, let me see, I'm trying to think of a good example here. When you want to go ahead and, yeah, I got it. So if you want to go ahead and bring in your contacts from your email, right? And you're on your phone, right? And you want to restore your phone with your contacts from your email. It tells you where you want to restore from. You have a message that says, okay, Google, iCloud, Microsoft, right? Or X, Y, and Z platforms. You log into one of those platforms. Let's say you log into Google, and then bam, it pulls in all that data onto your phone. All your contacts come onto your phone.
Hmm.
But ERP is starting to become no different. Like Acumatica has a HubSpot integration. So you could log into HubSpot right through Acumatica and bring in some of that CRM detail,
Hmm.
right? Because both solutions are on the cloud.
Yeah.
Uh, I could see that, where you could take, data from, other sources. If you have an account on Dynamic CRM and you have another account on, let's say Monday, let's say, I don't know, Smartsheets, I could see at some point where Microsoft's going to open up the two integrations and say, hey, there's use cases for both. So if you have an account with Smartsheet, you could go ahead and log into Smartsheet through Dynamics Business Central, bring in that project plan right into the projects module.
Hmm.
There's no separate integration, right? It's already pre-written. These are SaaS solutions at the end of the day. There's going to be cross collaboration that are going to happen more and more over time. So, in order for you to take advantage of that connectivity across your SaaS solutions, you have to be on the cloud. You have to
Hmm.
kind of go down the managed services route.
Yeah. This I love because different companies different companies sometimes can be competing for the same bit of business, but it's always going to be the end user that benefits, because if you're not integrating your SaaS platform with others, then you're going to be left behind, right? If we use the app on a phone example, if you create an app that only runs on Android, you've just denied a huge proportion of mobile phone users. Everyone
Yeah.
on iPhone won't be using your product and won't be signing
Nope.
up for your subscription service. So
Nope.
the ability to integrate on different platforms and different SaaS applications is hugely beneficial for both that company, but ultimately, and the bit I care about, is the end user. I would love to be able to
Hmm.
do this. And we've seen this recently, haven't we, with Acumatica and BigCommerce.
Hmm.
Imagine
Hmm.
that if they weren't integrated
Yeah.
for the company, say for Acumatica and say for BigCommerce, you're going to have a load of Acumatica customers probably not use BigCommerce, and you're going to have a
Right.
load of BigCommerce users not look at Acumatica because there's no integration.
Right.
So both of them are going to be limiting their markets. But for the
Yep.
end user, it's the same thing. I
Yep.
don't have to manage BigCommerce and learn that and then go and manage Acumatica. That
Right.
integration allows me to manage my e-commerce platform through
Yeah.
Acumatica because it's integrated, and that means that
Hmm.
end users haven't got to spend time learning a different user interface, haven't got to spend time alt tabbing from that browser to this browser to go and then do something in BigCommerce. It's
Right.
just a simple case of enable this product on the web shop. We've seen before with the direction of data. Like, I've already got all of my pricing and my images and my descriptions uh, in Acumatica, and it just gets
Yeah.
pushed
Yep.
onto this other SaaS platform. That is
Yeah.
so much nicer, isn't it? So
Oh
it's
yeah.
beneficial for everyone. The competition of wanting to be open and integrated with every other SaaS person out there, um, end users win every single time.
End user win. Absolutely. It's only going to get bigger. It's only going to get better. Um, and for one low fee, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Thank you, Nirav. It's been wonderful once again. So I'm really glad that we managed to get to this topic. I know we've kind of
Yeah.
skirted around it before, and we probably repeated ourselves in
Hmm.
places when it comes to cloud solutions over on-prem, but it's just the way it is, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
If you want to reach out to us and let us know if we've missed anything or want to dive in deeper on a certain point, or maybe you've suddenly had a brainstorm like Narav just did with another potential podcast subject, let us know. Details are in the show notes. So until next time, thank you for joining us. Narav, enjoy your week. I look forward to next weekend when we shoot again. And until then, I will catch you on the next episode.
All right. Take care, sir.
Have a good one.
You too.